All right. Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us for our Sweet Sobriety Open House. We are honored to have Johnathan Cranford here to speak tonight about kind of share his personal story with sugar, as well as some tips and tools from his book, The Sugar Demons. And we just wanted to start off for anyone who might be new to us to do a quick little introduction of us, kind of show you the platform, and then we'll launch into Johnathan. So I'm Clarissa Kennedy. I'm a co-founder of Sweet Sobriety. I am in recovery from food addiction and eating disorders. And Molly and I developed this platform to do some monthly coaching to kind of share some psychoeducation about what is food addiction, what is eating disorders, and then use motivational interviewing and solution focused counseling techniques to help you find your answer. And our goal is really for you to be in relationship with food, whatever that looks like for you. And so, yeah, that is, and I've been in private practice doing this now for about 4 years. And so I met Molly and we knew that we wanted to work together. And so this is the company that we created. And so I will pass it over to Molly and she can introduce herself as well.
Hi, guys. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Molly Painschab. I am the other half or co-founder of Sweet Sobriety. Clarissa and I also co-host along with Vera Tarman, the Food Junkies podcast. You may have heard us there, and now you can put a faces to names or names to faces or to voices, I guess is what I'm actually trying to say. There we go. So I, like Clarissa, have been in the field for a long time, starting out in substance use disorders, mental health treatment back in 2005, and then have been exclusively working with food addiction in the last 3 or 4 years. And so one thing that I found when I came to this field in particular was that there access to services, like there's access to services with traditional mental health or substance use disorders, did not exist in the same way. One, because there just weren't that many providers, and two, the providers that did exist, the cost was very costly. And that, to my little therapist heart, just hurt it so much. So when Clarissa and I found each other and started working together, we dreamed this up, like she said, and this is some of our best hopes. And we're really excited for February because our foundations course is modeled after the audit that we did of treatment, along with Jen Unwin and some others out of the UK and Sweden. We published the paper on it. And so we took the foundations modules and we really made it the basis of Sweet Sobriety. Now those modules are currently, we're running a special for a no charge workshop to go along with them. So if you have purchased the modules or you do purchase the modules between now and February, we are offering 4 weeks of 90-minute sessions to go along with that because that's how much we believe in what we're doing. And we want to give you guys the opportunity to get what those who did the treatment study, the audit on the treatment, were able to get. So in a nutshell, that's me. That's who I am. That's who I am, what I stand for, and a little bit about Sweet Sobriety. If you have any questions, feel free to throw them in the chat box. Bethany is also one of our teammates. We have a fourth teammate, Jennifer. She was unable to make it tonight because she has mom duty things to do. And we totally understand that because we recover in reality here at Sweet Sobriety. So we get it. But I'm going to pass the mic to Bethany and she can introduce herself and let you guys know who she is and what she's about.
Sure. Thanks, Molly. My name is Bethany Mazaru. If you're looking at my last name, trying to wonder how to pronounce it, Mazaru, like kangaroo. And I live in Kitchener, Ontario, Canada. And like a lot of people who work in this field, I have my own personal story of sugar and food addiction and recovery. You can hear more of that on the Sweet Sobriety YouTube channel, but in a nutshell, struggled with this as long as I can remember. I can remember as a kid sneaking food, trying to get more than my share, scheming how to just get more from my younger sister from a really young age. And I've just battled my weight, my shape, all kinds of things for more than 40 years, right? So it was the one thing I just thought, I can't figure this out. I feel like I'm a smart person and, educated, good job and everything, and I just couldn't figure this thing out. So it was a huge hang up for me. And so I just felt like I tried everything. And then learning about sugar and food addiction was a real key for me. But then learning that the food is just a small part of the journey, right? So it's just the tip of the iceberg. And as long as I was focused only on the food and my weight, I wasn't dealing with everything underneath, like the emotions, relationships, codependency, workaholism, perfectionism, all those good things. So anyway, so now I know the bigger picture, and that's what I like to help people with. And so, yeah, I feel like I love coaching people. I feel like I've done it all my life, but it's much better to coach people who actually sign up for coaching than to give out like unsolicited advice to my friends and family. So I love helping people see things like in a different light, and helping them get unstuck is one of my favorite things. So I consider it a real privilege and honor to walk beside people on this journey. And one of the many reasons that I've chose to work with Sweet Sobriety is because Molly and Clarissa are the real deal. They authentically care about you, about your well-being. And I don't think any of them have a fake bone in their body. And that kind of honesty with clients, with ourselves, is really one of my own core values, and something that Sweet Sobriety really encourages and embodies. So you'll never experience like anything fake, like a bait and switch or fluffy promotions and things like that. I think that they and we walk the talk, and we keep learning how to help people achieve freedom from sugar and food addiction. So I'm honored to be here. Thanks.
Awesome. So now Molly's just going to do a quick little demonstration of our Sweet Sobriety platform for anyone who's never used it before. And then I will introduce our guest speaker tonight.
Awesome. Yeah. So if you guys have, let's see here. Can you guys see the Sweet Sobriety page? Hopefully. Can somebody just give me a verbal, because I can't see you guys?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Okay. So this is what it looks like when you're logged in. So if you're a student and you are enrolled in courses, you will see those in this My Courses section. And across the top, you'll have the ability, like if you go into all courses, that will show you all the courses that we're currently running that you can sign up for if you haven't. About will take you into a page about us. One-on-one services will take you to a place where you can look and see, you can read more about us and how we work with individuals one-on-one, and you can book one-on-one services with us. Frequently asked questions, go there to find out more about some of our policies and procedures, things about, what to do if somebody's harassing you, that kind of thing. Resources is going to take you to meetings and that kind of thing. Sweet Sobriety stories. You can go and you can see all of the YouTube videos that we've done so far on stories. The media is a place where you can find interviews that Clarissa and I have done along the way. And then again, like My Courses, and then community will take you to community, and I'll show you that in a second. So as you go down, again, any courses that you're signed up for will populate in the My Courses. Anything. So because I am in the group coaching, you can see those opportunities on the calendar, and you can click on them and register for them if you want. However, we don't require that. You can just see that they're there, and we send all registered group members an invite 10 to 15 minutes before that meeting starts. We also post it in the community. Now, why we have to wait for 10 to 15 minutes before it starts is because it's never the same link. We use Zoom through Zenler, which is the platform in which Sweet Sobriety is on. It's never the same link, and we can only open the meeting 15 minutes early. And that's why we have to wait kind of until the last minute to get you guys the link. So again, here's kind of like all courses right now that we're offering. So right now there's a live cravings workshop going on. If, so they're 2-3 weeks into it. So if you've missed that, there's a home study version of it for half the price. And then you could pair that with group coaching, that kind of thing. You can go into each of those, you can click on them, and it will show you more information about those things. But if you continue to scroll down your page, you will see your communities. So you can either use the top, the menu at the top to click on your community, or you can just continue scrolling to the bottom. So On the left, it's going to show you the communities that you're in. So everybody, regardless of if they're a student or not, can see the community nuts and bolts. So this is a place where you're going to want to ask questions. So somebody here asked for the recordings, not a big deal. Somebody asked for like, what does TIP stand for? That was something we had talked about in group one day. That kind of thing. So that's a place, so that's a community that whether you're a student or not, you can see that and you can ask questions. For people who are like in group coaching, here they can, here, do you have any information? Clarissa posts information. I post information there. Again, you'll see the links, that kind of thing. So that's where we're at for communities. It's kind of nice to have something separate from the Facebook. So that's just kind of a really quick cruise through what it looks like when you're on the other side. But if anybody has any specific questions, just let me know. And we can either get time after a group or something to walk you through it, or we'll get on a meeting and get you situated so that you have what you need. And so with that, I will turn it over because enough about us. We have a very special speaker tonight.
Yes, we do. And if anyone listened to episode 8 of the Food Junkies podcast, you will know our special guest. His name is Johnathan Cranford. He's a teacher that lives in Houston with his wife and his 2 rescue dogs, and he has more than a decade of experience in the field of education. He also wrote a best-selling book, The Sugar Demons, which talks about his struggle with sugar addiction and binge eating. And today he's going to share his personal story as well as some of the tips and tools from his book that he found helps empower people to get into their sugar addiction recovery. So without further ado, Johnathan, welcome.
Hi, thank you for having me. It's good to see you guys again. This feels exactly like Food Junkies because it's the same people. So feels exactly the same. And that was great. And I'm excited to see you guys again. Y'all look great, by the way. So yeah, my story it hasn't changed since the last time, but I did want to get into a little bit more detail because I've learned more about myself since writing Sugar Demons, which was just sort of like a cathartic, desperate move, I guess, on my part. If I was going to say my addiction story was like a Lifetime movie, the cold opening would be a 6-year-old me sitting in front of a television, 1983, watching Saturday morning cartoons, the super violent Transformers, G.I. Joe, GoBots, that sort of thing. And in my lap is a giant bowl of Captain Crunch cereal. And you can see in my eyes that my brain is activated. Like I'm sitting perfectly still, but I am entranced. And that is my first memory of what sugar feels like to me. Like it's like an actual feeling in my body. Like it's not an emotional memory. It's a memory of feeling like, wow, I am really amped up right now. And that is my first drug experience. So I don't start using sugar to escape until probably middle school. And middle school is tough on me. It's not like middle school is easy on anyone, but I was having some problems at home as well. So I would use, I was using a lot of food at that time to kind of escape how I was feeling internally. And the way I would do that is my family didn't keep a lot of junk food in the house. So, but to them, it was the 1980s. So juices were health food, the Welch's grape juice, that sort of thing. And then for some reason, Jif peanut butter was considered health food to them. And of course, whole wheat bread. So like 90% of my diet in middle school is me making peanut butter sandwiches and drinking Minute Maid orange juice from concentrate and Welch's grape juice. Like that is what I existed on in junior high. For the most part. And I would make big stacks of sandwiches and then I'd kind of go isolate in my room with a book or something to escape whatever I was dealing with or the madness of my household or whatever. And that's kind of my first memory of like seeking behavior. Like I would always kind of run into the kitchen and just use something to escape that mood or feeling that I was in. And it, worked relatively well. I even remember at some point trying to take out eat the Minute Maid orange concentrate straight out of the freezer like a popsicle. It did not work for me, but I remember trying that. As you can imagine, my eating habits don't really change in high school very much. They change, but I'm not getting any better. It's not for the better. And then at the end, basically right after high school, two things happen. One is I become a father at the age of 19. And two is I go to work as a bartender in my local gay bar. And I immediately fall in love with bartending. That was great. It was like all the people were cool and more worldly than the relatively conservative people that I've been hanging out with all this time. And the money was like triple what I would made at any other job. And so, I have my daughter and I have this new like work family that I love. And so I just spend the next couple of years like focusing on raising a kid, going to college, working out, and bartending. And I don't need a social life because my work is my social life. So then the first moment that I can remember where I'm actually questioning, I'm actually like having a moment where I'm like questioning what I'm doing, what my relationship with the food is right after college. So I graduated from the University of Houston right as the Enron, what do you call it, debacle. The Enron scandal is exploding and taking the United States economy down with it. And I can't get a job to save my life. So, and I feel like I've been like let down by the social contract because all my teachers in life had always said, you go to college, you get a good job, and all of the commercials on television, especially this time when the online universities are starting to come out, they're like, everything is like, hey, go to college and, you'll be set, you'll get a good job. And that was not the experience I was having. And I was really stressed. And, when I'm stressed, I binge. That's what I do. I binge eat when I'm stressed. And so, and I'm stressed because I'm not finding a real job with my degree. Like I'm still bartending to support myself, but I'm just like, I'm feeling like there's all this pressure because I have a kid and I need to go out and I need to start, having an adult job and living a more adult life, I felt like. And so I start stressing and, binge eating is my thing. I like to isolate and zombie eat to be more specific. So I'll just sit there in front of a video game and play video games and just shove ice cream in my face, not even really realizing how much, or how much I've consumed or what it even tastes like sometimes. It's the same thing people do with movie theater popcorn, right? And they're in the movies and they just kind of zombie eat, right? And so the first time ever in my life, I finished an entire half gallon of ice cream in one sitting. And I can never forget the flavor. It was Bluebell birthday cake ice cream. It's not even my favorite flavor because I'm about to do the same thing the next week with cookies and cream, which is probably my favorite flavor. And just for a moment, I looked down and there's just a couple spoonfuls of this ice cream out of this big tub of ice cream left. And I'm like, whoa. And I hear this voice in my head say, hey, whoa, is this normal? ? Like, it's like a real firm, like, whoa, wait a second. And I thought that I had messed up. Like for a moment, I had like a scary feeling like, hey, wait a minute. Is it okay to actually eat this much ice cream in one sitting? Like, am I going to get sick? Did I do something like really bad to myself? And then, I hear that voice and I'm not going to hear it again for like a decade, because then what pops into my mind is that there are these eating competitions. And I remember reading about some guy who ate like 75 scoops of ice cream or something, and he was fine, right? So I blow right past that. And then, I just keep continuing on in my life. And apart from that, honestly, everything else is really fine. Like I'm still bartending. I still love my job. And actually now I'm working at what you would call the Studio 54 of Houston. Like this is a gay bar, but it is everybody who's anybody wants to be there, right? So there's a line around the building to get in, around the block to get in every night. And there's celebrities at my bar sometimes. And, it's a good time. Very much like Studio 54. Also, most of the bartenders are shirtless. So I'm shirtless behind the bar every weekend. And what the world sees is this very happy, very fit person who loves his job, which is true. But that's like the Instagram version of me, even though this is 20 years ago. Like this wasn't, MySpace wasn't even barely a thing yet. But it's the fake version of my, they don't see the real me, which is, they don't see the isolation. They don't see the toxic relationship I have with my girlfriend. And then the frequent episodes of binge eating, they don't see all that, but they see this guy who's having a great time at work, because I was when I was at work. And so, people are approaching me at this time all the time. They're coming up and asking like, oh, how can I look like you? How can I, what do I have to do to, the more specific, the weird ones will be like, ask you about a specific body part. They're like, hey, how do I get a chest like you or whatever? And so, but I'm a friendly bartender. So I'm talking to them and I'll tell them, about my workouts, and I live on protein shakes at this point. So I talk about that, but I don't tell them about the binge eating because it doesn't fit who I am, right? It's not the, what I'm projecting out into the world. And to be fair, to be honest, like I'm just really lucky that I have a fairly decent metabolism, and I'm ashamed of binging, which is why I do it in isolation. So the best word I can use to describe the feeling of binge eating, and this is kind of a strong word, but it feels masturbatory. Because it's this same sad, like hand to face motion, and you're just sort of self-stimulating in this way that's not sexual, but you're just doing something. And then afterwards you feel very wrong about it, right? Or I did anyway, that's how it felt to me. And no shame or on, actual masturbation, whatever journey you're on with yourself, as long as it's healthy, that's fine. But for me, I felt like I was doing this really incredibly, bad thing, but I wouldn't talk to myself. I was so ashamed I couldn't talk to myself about it. So eventually the binge eating, it does catch up with me a little bit. And because I have to bartend, it's my job to bartend in front of thousands of people shirtless every weekend. And if I start to lose my 6-pack abs or whatever, like I go into panic mode. And the way I respond to this is by restricting, in a way, not really restricting calories or protein so much, but I'm just restricting any of those foods that cause you to put on weight, right? I have some idea about diet and nutrition, not a very good one at this point, but I start restricting and getting very clamped down on my diet. And pardon me, and I can do this for a good amount of time until everything comes back to the way I want it to look. And I can maintain that for a while until I just crash and I go into a binge for like several days or several weeks. And then I start to put weight on again, and then I panic again, and then I go back, and I'm in this cycle that now I understand. Even then I understand that this is called yo-yo dieting, right? Except that to me, like now, like yo-yo dieting is like a brilliant term to like put all of the responsibility on the individual, when, what I call it now is relapsing, which hopefully shares some of the responsibility with the people who influence our food environment and profit from it. But it would work, and I would get my 6-pack back, and and it helped my self-esteem. So I'd be okay. But it wasn't a good cycle to be stuck in, right? And I knew I was stuck in a cycle. I was at least aware of that. I wasn't aware of a lot of things, but I was aware that this was kind of a yo-yo dieting cycle. And so the toxic relationship with the girlfriend ends, and she moves out, and this bodybuilder friend of mine moves in, and he needs a place to stay for a while. And so he's crashing on my couch for like 6 months. And that's a turning point for me, not in a good way, because he teaches me how to eat like a bodybuilder, sort of. And so what starts happening is we're eating chicken, brown rice, and broccoli for like every meal, almost, for 6 days out of the week, Monday through Saturday. And then on Sunday, we have this epic cheat day. And this epic cheat day that we planned together, that we talk about all week, that we're thinking about all week, and then we are executing on Sunday. And it is insane. Like, you start off at IHOP for, endless pancakes, and then Krispy Kreme at some point makes an appearance. And there's burgers and pizza and all the stuff I can't have during the week. And then, of course, for me, ice cream. And the worst thing about it is that I feel like I have like this, I've been given permission to do this, right? Medical professionals don't concern themselves too much when their patient has suicidal thoughts, unless that patient also now has a plan. Usually that's kind of how it works in medicine as well. It's, we shouldn't have suicidal thoughts, but if you have a plan, now that's serious. My binge eating has a plan every week now. I have a full-blown eating disorder at this point, and I'm not even aware of it, right? I'm not skinny, I'm not fat, I am lean and muscular, and so nobody thinks that there's a problem, least of all me. And then eventually I do land the corporate job that I had been waiting for, and I hate it, of course, it's terrible. So I continue, I'm actually, and I still love bartending. So I decide, I stay bartending and I'm working this corporate job at the same time. And it's fine because, my social life is the bar anyway. And I'm now making a lot of money. Well, not a lot of money. I'm making more than what I was making, quite a bit more than what I was making before, because I'm working 2 jobs. I'm essentially 2 incomes now. And so I upgrade my lifestyle, right? I'm in my 20s and, I get a new apartment that's like fancier and nicer in a better area. I get a new car. I take my daughter to Disney World. She's 9 years old at this point. And eventually I upgraded a little too much because now I am like having to work 2 jobs instead of just working 2 jobs because I wanted to, because it's convenient. And that sends my stress like skyrocketing, because now I'm like, how am I caught in these 2 cycles of, like I'm yo-yo dieting and I'm working so much that, but there's not enough money. And so my stress is just out of control. And so even though I'm still like having my binge day on Sundays, these other foods are now starting to creep back in Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. So now I'm yo-yo dieting like pretty hard again. And that was not a comfortable phase of my life to be in, but it was a phase. And so by 31, I get through that, and somehow, I get out of bartending. I'm working a more regular job. I'm more settled now at 31. I get married. I'm getting really into CrossFit, and in CrossFit, I get introduced to eating a real food diet. That's our mantra. That's meat, vegetables, nuts and seeds, some fruit, little starch, no sugar. I think it's probably still on the CrossFit.com website. And I get so obsessed with the nutrition, I get the nutrition in general, because it's actually a pretty good way to eat still to this day. You take all the processed garbage out of your life, and that just makes things easier to organize, right? So I get so obsessed with it that eventually I'm the one teaching the nutrition seminars at the gym to everyone. And I'm even going to other gyms sometimes and doing that. I actually just did one last Saturday, but I talk about addiction more now than just how to eat. That's the difference between then and now. But then I was just talking about nutrition and, arrogantly talking about how to eat to everyone. And, and I wanted the best for people, but, it's very easy where I'm standing because I don't put on weight or put on fat very easily to just, talk about how easy and smooth this is, because I'm still binge eating. I'm still not eating whole real foods all the time. I'm actually eating quite a bit of packaged foods. But what happens is I get more snobbish about my cheat foods. So to give you an example, my old ice cream, Bluebell ice cream, has like 50 ingredients, who knows how many ingredients, like a long list. And most of them, you don't know what they are. And so, that's not good for you. And you compare that to, say, a Haagen-Dazs, which has 5 ingredients. So it's more natural. And you're like, okay, so in my mind, I'm like, this is a better cheat. And it is, but it's still a cheat. I'm still using and I'm still binging, and it's still a problem. But it's just, the quality has improved, right? So, and now I start at this point, I start hearing the conversations I'm having with myself around when I'm about to binge. So I start hearing this voice that is saying to me every time, when I'm right when I'm about to go into it, when I'm in that bubble that you feel like you're inside, and you just know what you're going to do, even though you're trying not to. And that this voice comes in and it's like, hey, you can totally eat this because you worked out really hard today and you probably need the calories anyway, and you can just be a little more strict tomorrow. And it has all of these, great sounding ideas. And I know now, because I'm a regular listener of Food Junkies, that these are called permission statements. But I just started calling them my sugar demons. I knew that voice sounded right, but eventually I'd figured out, at least in my 30s, that this was not my friend. So it's a permission statement, but I refer to it as the sugar demons. The funny thing now is I'm the nutrition guy, and I'm more embarrassed about my relationship with food because I'm out there preaching, right? And my family knows I know a lot about nutrition, but they also can see how I eat. So just to give you an example, like my wife and I have joint bank accounts, right? Like it wasn't an option. She was like, when we got married, she was like, hey, we're joining our money. And I was like, okay, well, fine. I never really had that much to begin with. So no problem. But she can see everything I purchase in real time now. And she's very hawkish about looking at our bank accounts. She's the fiscally responsible one, right? So if I eat fast food, she could see it like instantly. And like she would sometimes make a little joke about it, not intentionally cruel, but she'd be like, oh, hey, I saw you had Whataburger today. And it was nothing to her, it was just a joke. But to me, I would feel like inside, I'd just feel like guilty and ashamed and kind of angry because I felt like my privacy was being invaded and just like riddled with all these, bad emotions. And, really it's what, as an addict, you feel, I guess any addict when they're kind of confronted with their own addiction feels, anger, guilt, shame, whatever. I felt all of those things. And so, to her, it's haha funny, but to me, it was something else. And I hid that very well, but it was something I was feeling inside. And so I think now Molly and Clarissa, you know where I'm going with this. I'm 37 years old now, and I am standing over my kitchen trash can. And I'm pulling out trash because I have 2 empty pints of ice cream in my hand that I want to hide underneath some other trash, because if I just put it on top, then my wife or my daughter might see it and they might make a little joke or a comment, and I don't want to deal with that. So I'm pulling out the trash and looking into it, it just kind of hits me all of a sudden. And I hear this voice that I haven't heard in a very long time. And it is very firmly saying, hey, this isn't normal. And it's not accommodating or soothing like the sugar demons. It's firm and it's a little sad. It's a little disappointed sounding. And I realized that the voice is me, and the other voices I've been listening to are my addiction. And what sugar and processed food did, what any addiction does to you, is I realize is it takes away that nurturing voice that you need to be listening to guide you, and it replaces it with these other voices that are easier to follow. And so with the weight of all of that kind of hitting me in that moment, I went to my computer and I'm angry, because I know now I'm finally accepting that something is wrong. And, hi, it's me, I'm the problem, right? And so I go to my computer and I write an article, and it's called The Sugar Demons. And a year later, or a year and a half, 2 years later, the article Sugar Demons, I turned into a book. And here we are. So that's my story. What did you guys want me to go into next?
Yeah, just share maybe some of the tips or like takeaways kind of
Yes.
From the book. Yeah, no, thank you so much. First of all, I just want to hold space for you because that was incredible. And thank you for sharing that. I know how challenging that can be for us, and appreciate your vulnerability so much. So yeah, like launch into next. What did you find that helped you, battle this sugar demon?
Sure. So I'm not sure what to do right immediately after, but I write, that article, and it just really, it's the first chapter of Sugar Demons. It just talks about the feeling of it, the emotional connection to it, what is happening in my brain and in my body, and I don't know where to go from there, really, not right away. And so, I find some resources. I don't really go into looking at sugar addiction. I really didn't know a lot about the sugar addiction community until I met you guys and the podcast and all that stuff. And then that stuff, I wish I'd known sooner. But I was just so oblivious to all of that. But I find out, I learned about Jane McGonigal and this program called Super Better, which sort of became a part of the book. It's not the whole book, but it was like an inspiration to me to learn that you can have self-efficacy if you just kind of find a way forward, just take one step at a time, and you can even turn it into a little game. And so I started there, and then eventually through a lot of trial and error and probably several more relapses, definitely several more relapses, and probably definitely many more relapses. I come up with the Sugar Demons method as I'm writing the book, right? And all of it just kind of comes together. And so the Sugar Demons method is a 3-step process essentially. And the first big step is, after obviously accepting that there's an issue, is that you track your cravings. That was a big one for me because I didn't realize that until I did that. I didn't know that my cravings weren't random. I thought that they were, just like hitting me whenever, but they're actually pretty regular. And so for me, it was always like right after coming home from work, stress, right? And then go right before going to bed. So right after dinner. And once I started to track it, I started to know. And then once you kind of can see the pattern of it, you also can associate it with why, right? So for the, after work and right before, going to bed, it's usually stressing about the day, stressing about the next day, the next morning, whatever. And then on the weekends, for me, a lot of times it would switch over to maybe boredom eating or not wanting to sit with yourself, that kind of thing. Or just my activity can be kind of a trigger. So video games for me can be a little triggering because they're kind of based on a dopamine, kind of a dopamine drip, like you're just getting like a little bit of reward every time you make it a little further in the game. So it's like a little bit of a dopamine drip. And then that leads to wanting more, right? Which leads to seeking behavior, which leads to me wanting to go eat food. So I have to be careful with my activities too, a little bit. But just that's a big learning process. That's step one, and just figuring out. Even sometimes I tell people, if you can do it in your head a lot of the times. I'll see people, like when I talk to them in person, they've never heard about this stuff, like the light bulb just goes off when I tell them. They're like, oh yeah, that's when I do it too. I'm always eating right before bed. That's so common, is especially the at night right after dinner thing, and they're just like, think. So that's step one, and you learn a lot about yourself in that part of the journey. And then step two is, now that you have this schedule of when these things are going to happen, now you can create like a before, during, and after plan. So more steps, right? But more steps than 3. But it's like, this before, during, after craving plan. So for my right after work thing, one of the things I talk about in Sugar Demons is the power up thing, like the thing you do to boost yourself up right before you're going into this battle. So maybe a half hour before that craving is coming, you can do something. You can exercise. You can do. I talk about them all I split them into 3 categories in the book. There's physical, social, and emotional boosts that you can do in order to get yourself psyched up for getting through this next craving or getting through this next couple of hours. So for me, exercise is a great one, but another one I put in the book is supplement strategies. And L-glutamine is one of the first ones. And if you drink a glass of water with L-glutamine in it, for one, you feel like you're doing something, healthy or whatever. And actually L-glutamine does have some effect on cravings. And I listened to the most recent podcast of the Food Junkies, and I learned that there's 3 more that I want to add now. I would probably add to the L-glutamine, the GABA and taurine, and then the D-phenylalanine. So I would add all of those. And now, and if I were to go back and write Sugar Demons, I wouldn't just say glutamine, but I would add all 4, just go for it. Take the shotgun approach, right? So after you've done your power up, then you've got to, your actual during craving moment, you need to have a replacement food ready. A lot of times that involves some sort of preparation, and people hate to think about or talk about meal prep, but you've got to do something. You have to have something ready, because you are not going to make it if you are faced with a choice when it comes time to eat, and it comes time for that craving. You are going to follow the path of least resistance some of the time. Your willpower is only going to last you so long. So a great example of that is, like, I can eat a good breakfast and say that I'm going to go to work, and at lunchtime I'm going to go eat somewhere healthy. And I'm going to have chicken breast and salad or whatever, but then you get stressed out because work is stressful, and maybe you had an argument with your boss or a coworker, and then driving to the restaurant is trafficy, and now you're just amped up from your stress or whatever, and you end up going through the drive-through instead of making that healthy choice that you said you were going to make and you had every intention of making this morning. And that has happened to me countless times. So I learned to work my way around it and to take willpower out of the equation by just always having my food ready and with me if I'm going somewhere where I know I'm not going to be able to make a good choice. So So that is your middle. And then your third one is just, have something after that you can do that makes you also feel good, kind of like a power up, but just some sort of activity that you have to have a plan for after. Because if you're just standing around or sitting around, you're still going to think about food. You're still going to have that craving. So if you can busy yourself with some sort of something, start figuring out the things that make you feel good in your body or emotionally, some way. If that's listening to music. For me, reading a book is better than watching TV or playing video games, because I don't get that dopamine reaction. Meditate, whatever, just have something figured out so that you're going to get through that craving. And then the third, actual number 3, because that was step 2, is actually those 3 parts: before, during, after. But the 3 is actually control your food environment, which is kind of like the middle step of step 2. And that's just, your food environment is your landscape of food possibilities around you at any given time. And so for you to, instead of making that poor choice, you've got to remember that you're going to a lot of times follow the path of least resistance. So if you have something ready to go with you at all times, then you're controlling your food environment. You've now made the path of least resistance that food that you already have ready to go with you at work, or, wherever it is nearby, instead of making that other choice that is, you cannot trust yourself. Not in the initial days anyway. Like, you just can't. You can't trust willpower. You can't trust yourself. Take it out of the equation. Don't let it be a factor, because if you rely on it as a factor, you're not going to beat your sugar demons that way. So that's the sugar, in a nutshell, that's the sugar demons method to get you through the first 20 days, 14 days, 10 days, whatever it takes for you to get to the promised land, where the cravings really die down and it becomes a lot easier to manage at that point. But it takes a good while. Some people, it takes them full 14 days. A lot of people, it's just 10. It just depends on, everybody's different. It just depends on, where you are with, how long you've been doing it. There's genetics and emotional issues, the whole factor of things, what's your stress like, but however things are going, give yourself a good 14 days to get into the promised land. And then it gets a little bit easier.
Yeah, I love that you created the workbook then. And it's just like a whole, like, it's what you call your battle plan. It's a format of that. And it's just like, it's filled with that, right? Like the beginning kind of recaps some takeaways from the book, but then there's this workbook, and I love that you call it the battle plan. And then you called the replacement foods broccoli angels, which I thought was really neat, because sugar demons. And then, so what replacement are you going to have? And you call them broccoli angels. And I was just like, that's so clever, right? Because we're so used to being in this, like everything can start to feel so negative. Sugar demons, sugar dragons, the gremlin in my head, like, oh, this is a disease and why me? And then here you have this term broccoli angels. And I was just like, that was one of the things that I think I loved the most when I first read your book, was just like this beacon of hope. And I think some of it, just you seem to be that kind of person who is always looking for like leveling up. Like, how can I make this better? How can I succeed or persevere? And then I think, you being influenced by or inspired by Jane McConagle's Super Better, and like kind of her idea of taking on this persona, right? Of like a superhero persona almost, right? And if I'm remembering correctly, her
your
TED
superhero
Talk.
self. Yeah. That was to get what they call self-distancing, right? So you can see it happening to your superhero self, right? And that gives you a little bit of distance from the problem and makes it a little bit easier. And I did that too. That helped me a little bit. Not everybody has to do it if they're uncomfortable with it, but it can be beneficial. That's why it's in there. I should say I stopped selling the workbook because I'm going to try to make something a little more quality. That is like an Amazon, like basically like a notebook, that you can. It wasn't like what I want it to be. I'm going to try to make something nicer in the near future, but there is still worksheets in the back of the sugar demons that you can fill out. As long as you follow the method, you'll be fine.
Yeah, absolutely. So can you talk a little bit about that? Because I think a lot of us are used to, we're so often used to like naming the addiction voice, right? And so like you named it the sugar demons. And I think we're really used to that. But like you said, not a lot of people are comfortable with almost like doing the opposite of it, like taking on this superhero, almost like persona. And that's absolutely something that we do with CBT in the cognitive behavioral therapy world. there's techniques of imagery, and some of these imagery techniques say, hey, like, imagine yourself as like a tank driver, like smashing your cravings, crushing your cravings with this tank or whatever. So it's very like, it's rooted in a lot of science. And I'm just wondering if you could talk a little bit more about, like, when you use that technique, like, what did that sound like? What did it look like? Does your superhero, like, does your alter ego have like a name other than sugar demons? Like, what is that?
Yeah, so you're gonna make me embarrass myself here. So so just from an imagery perspective, you're absolutely right. Like, well, and of course you are. You guys are way more educated on this stuff than I am. But from an imagery perspective, like, so I was a Star Wars fan, so I was a Jedi. I was Jedi Johnathan for a while in my head, and my wife, I hope you can hear that my wife is upstairs. She heard that and she's laughing. So thank you, Clarissa. Thank you, Molly. So anyway, just from a visual perspective, you cannot picture your Luke Skywalker self like eating a burger, or eating a donut, stuffing it into his face, because that is not how a Jedi behaves. That is not how your most, like ideal self would act in that situation, right? So right off the bat, it gives you, if you kind of start thinking of yourself, and why not, right? I mean, you're the hero of your own story, right? At all times. So, that's why, I start off as I'm that 6-year-old boy in front of a TV, right? Like that was kind of where things started to go south. And then now I'm not that person anymore. And if I have to make up this other person in my head to be for a while, then I do. And so, yeah, so just right there, I already cannot see that Jedi version of myself doing that. I just can't. It's like, no, does not fit with the picture at all. That's not who he is. So that's not what he would do. And then you kind of also take on, like, think about what skills are. I remember this is all from Jane McDonagall's book, by the way. This is all super better stuff. But you think about, like, you list out, what those skills are that person has. So, I thought of, a Jedi Knight has wisdom and calm and patience. And, they're never like super aggressive. They're never, they're just like a better version of who I already am. Because I'm not an aggressive person overly, and I'm fairly calm, considering the job that I have. And, I'm a middle school teacher, by the way, so you have to be calm. You just pick out these skills, and then, you start to apply them in those situations. Like, what would Jedi Johnathan do in this situation? And he would walk away from the donuts, or not the donuts was a big thing for him, but he would definitely walk away from the ice cream because that seems stupid to him. And so that was where a lot of that comes from for me. That was just kind of how it worked. I don't still do that really, but it was, if I needed to, if I had to go back to that, I would. But it was something that I did. I even, what I did? It's really funny. I had a artist on Fiverr. I paid $5 to have, he would take a picture and make a Jedi version of you. And I actually, with the robes and the lightsaber and everything, and I paid somebody money, and then they sent me the JPEGs, and I have them on my old computer that is, I'm going to destroy now that I have said that publicly, so that nobody ever finds it. But
I hope you were going to post it, Johnathan.
Yeah, I was thinking maybe this is going to be incorporated in the new workbook.
Show and tell.
Yes.
Never.
It's such a good idea, though. Like, I love that so much, because we do have so much research behind that. And I love that Jedi Johnathan. As soon as you said that, I'm like, oh, I want to be Mandalorian Molly. I love Star Wars too. Like, I love that image. I love taking on that, right? Because we talk so often about, how do we make this different than just another diet, right? Because this could have just as easily have been another yo-yo dieting thing for you. But what I think one key thing that was different is you took on this different persona, almost like you started to live as if you were a Jedi, as if you had these same values, these same belief systems as this person. And that allowed you to go, wait a minute, this is cognitive dissonance. That doesn't jive. Right? Like, this doesn't get me closer or line up with what I believe in. And it allowed you to move forward.
So you use those therapist words like cognitive dissonance, and that's what makes us different. That's how I know you're way more educated on this stuff than But yeah, absolutely. And I would also just add that at this point, I don't know, like it came through that I think that, and when I told you guys that, like, you know, I was reached this low point in my life, but also I was so desperate at that after that I wanted to try anything. So this was one of the things that I was like, I'm going to try it. I mean, I devoured Jane McDonagall's book when I, you know, like as soon after that. And it is not a short book. Super Better is not a short read. It is like 900 pages. And I was just glued to it because I was like, yes, 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 I can fix myself. Yes, please. And so I just tried everything that she offered because it was like the one string of hope that I was holding on to. Otherwise, I was looking back on, you know, I just gave you guys for, well, 6 years old. I mean, that was, you know, I'm 45 now. So that was, you know, 39 years of my life. And 20 of those were pretty much an eating disorder. You know, I mean, it was the binging and the, you know, the self-soothing with food and all that. And so looking back, I was like, okay, this has gone on a very long time and I'm desperate. And so I was desperate enough to try to be Jedi Johnathan because I was optimistic, but it was like this tiny sliver of hope that I was holding on to, that I could finally do something about this, because I'm out there preaching and telling people how to do it and I can't do it myself. And I know I can't do it myself. And that was a hard reality for me.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Go ahead.
Oh,
Clarissa.
yeah, no, I was just going to say, you definitely nailed that, like using your wise mind. We talk a lot about dialectical behavior therapy, like your Jedi was using your wise mind, like your best version of yourself. So there was a question from the audience that was, if you were going to give one tip for someone who's just dealing with sugar addiction, what would that be?
Ooh, one tip, you know what I would say, and it depends on what, if they like listening podcasts or not, but to this day, I'm a regular listener of the Food Junkies. And because it teaches me, and even though I know a lot of the stuff that your guests are talking about already, because I've lived it, or I've, you know, implemented the strategy myself, or I've counseled other people, it helps me to stay on track. It just helps me to stay in that. So, you know, maybe, you know, just, you know, immerse yourself in this knowledge, like learn everything that you can. And one of the ways to do that is to listen to Food Junkies. I know you guys are not paying me to say that. You're welcome to. I'll send you my address. But yeah, like it's just something, you know, just learn. That's what I had to do, except I didn't know that there was podcasts like this, and, you know, and I didn't know that there were groups. So, you know, join a group, you know, just get with, here's a better way of putting it. Instead of joining a group, you know, do all of those things, just make your life about it. Because what changed in me wasn't that I tried a new diet. It was that I finally gave this addiction the same respect and accountability that I would give to an alcohol or a drug addiction. And that's what really had to change. And so immersing yourself in this new world of recovery and learning as much as you can and trying as hard as you can, like that's where you have to be in order to get through this.
We have another question in the chat. So what did the first 30 days look and feel like for you, Johnathan? Was there grief? Was there terror? Did you have a community at that point?
No, not an addiction community. You know, we had I had the nutrition people that I was around in CrossFit. I have, you know, that's an athlete community. And those folks are great. And I have a great family. But as far as the first 30 days, I was really kind of on my own in a way. But I did start to I did kind of like what Jane McDonagall wanted you to recruit allies. So I think the first person I recruited was my wife. I was just like, hey, I need to stop doing this. I'm going to get better now. And, you know, and that's kind of an awkward conversation because she's like, you know, again, I've stayed lean, mostly lean and muscular, you know, for most of the time. I'm still the fittest person, you know, that my family regularly interacts with. So they're just kind of like, what? Okay, sure. And maybe I had one or two other friends that I could confide in. And then, but the first 30 days, you know, getting to the promised land, that was actually once I figured it out, like that was easy. And that was great. And then it was, I think I might have had, after the first Promised Land visit, I might have had one relapse or two. And then, and this is years ago, so I'm trying to remember, but then what happened was I went an entire year without sugar. So the first 30 days, I would say, it wasn't, the first 14 wasn't bad. At some point, maybe within a month or 2 months, I had a small relapse, I think. And then I was okay. And then I was like really on track for like a year. And what really changed was my attitude went from, I can't imagine my life without ice cream ever. So it was still an option in my head. But then at some point, like at the 5 or 6 month mark, there was this thing where I was like, oh, I can imagine it. And actually now I don't want it. I don't want it ever. And like, I was terrified to even like attempt, any kind of dessert sugar. I think somebody in the chat just said no sweeteners as well. I did, after, not for the first 10, 14 days, but I did allow myself stevia after I was in the Promised Land. So I would drink those Zevia colas. So that was something I allowed. And I was okay because it wouldn't give me cravings. To be honest, they're not that good. I still drink them. They're okay. But they don't give me cravings. I don't react to them. But I waited a long time until I started introducing anything that had a sweet flavor back into my life. Or anything that was actually sweet, not like stevia. I reintroduced probably a couple months back in, but then actual food that was, like a sugar, flour, or grain, that didn't even start to come back for over a year. And now I'm still very careful with those foods. Obviously, I don't binge anymore, and I don't really eat any of those drug foods, but I'm not as scared or afraid anymore as I used to be of, if I have something, like I can actually split a dessert with my wife now. Sometimes I'm at that point in my life where I can do that and I won't get cravings the next day. Or if I do, I know how to clamp down, and make sure that doesn't lead to something else. But it used to be, I would eat my dessert and eat an order whole for myself, and my wife can't finish a dessert to save her life. So I would then also eat hers. And that was my relationship with food back then. And now it's like, usually I'm like, yeah, I'm not going to do that. It's not worth it. But, we travel a lot. So we visit other countries, and I'm going to eat when I'm there, and I'm going to try new things, but I don't binge. I'm very careful about that. And I don't eat stupid drug foods, the Oreos, even the quality ice creams, I avoid that as much as possible. Even on a dessert, like it's very much like it has to usually be a restaurant, for it to happen, it has to be like a good restaurant. And then, it's like, okay, I'll try half of yours, or I'll try a piece of yours, or whatever. And I used to hate that. Like my family on my wife's side, they all share everything. They share everything, like food on their plates. They eat off each other's plates. The 4 of them will share a dessert, which was like, to me was like, you're all going to share that one dessert. Like how, that seems wrong to me. And now it's like, yeah, that's no big deal. But before it was like, it was anathema to me that I would share that much of my dessert with someone. It just changed over time. I'm in a much better place now. And I don't know what my addiction is on the scale of food addiction, but it's probably actually not very high compared to some people. It seemed like a much bigger deal back then. Now I've just had a very comfortable relationship with food for a while, but I did have that full year where I was just terrified to let anything cross my lips that wasn't a real food, healthy food, no sugar, no flour, no grain, that sort of thing.
Yeah, sounds like you definitely had both things going on as far as, right, like that intersection of eating disorder and food addiction. And it sounds like the binges were mainly centered around those drug foods. I mean, would that be accurate? So once the drug foods went, the binges subsided, or was there still potential for binging after that?
No, I don't volume eat on real food. It's hard. I mean, nobody's ever like, oh man, I binged on 12 sweet potatoes yesterday. Maybe you guys see that. I don't hear people binging on healthy foods. In the clients that I work with at CrossFit and stuff, I don't see that very much. But yeah, so once the drug foods went away, that is my trigger. Like ice cream, Oreos, that sort of thing, that would, I would just eat all of it. And yeah, once those disappeared, I don't binge. I don't need to.
Sorry,
Yeah,
I'm without a mouse, so I couldn't get my my
okay.
pointer over there to unmute. Yeah. So, well, Johnathan, I appreciate you. We appreciate you so much. Clarissa had to go. She had another engagement, and it looks like there are no more questions in the chat. But certainly, you guys, if you have more questions for Johnathan, you can send them my way, and I'm happy to forward them. I'm happy to forward you to his social media, and maybe you can get a hold of him there. But yeah, we just appreciate you so much. Thank you for your vulnerability. I'm sorry that we made your wife laugh at you, and because I totally heard her giggle. But yeah, if there's ever anything that we can do for you, please let us know. When that new workbook comes out, please let us know.
I will, for sure. I might be reaching out to you guys soon about something else that's a big surprise, but we'll talk soon. And thank you so much for listening to me and having me. And it is an honor to share with you guys and be here. And I wish the best of luck to all of you. I love you. You guys are amazing.
Yeah, same to you. Thanks, guys.
If you like what you heard today, please remember to like, comment, share, and subscribe. Thank you for watching.